Welcome to another episode of Seattle House Mafia's Industry Interviews. I'm Phil, your host. Today's guest started Red Cube in Portland in 2003, opened up 45 East in 2016, also in Portland. He just recently acquired Q Nightclub in February. He produces over 200 events a year, booking shows at Q and other venues in Seattle with a goal of more than 300 events per year. He is also a DJ and has been performing under the moniker Sidestep since 2000. Welcome, Paul Song.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm doing okay. It's just a little tired, but you know, I'm stoked to be here. Yeah.
So wait, you purchased Q 2.5 months ago?
Yeah, I became the official owner of the business in February 1st of this year.
Can we talk about that a little bit? Like,
yeah, sure.
What brought you to that place? Like, how did that happen?
Well, you know, it's like I've known about the Q Nightclub for many years because, you know, I've always had a interest in what's going on in Seattle. You know, when we're booking shows at 45 East, some of the artists, you know, before they come down to Portland, they're playing in Seattle, and you know, a lot of them happen to be at the Q Nightclub. So I've been following their business for a while, and you know, like I reached out to Q Nightclub about a year and a half ago and showed my interest that I wanted to do some shows over there. And then you know, we started doing some shows on Thursday. And you know, some on Fridays and Saturdays, but you know, their programming at that time was more focused on hip hop. So
interesting. So a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So you know, there weren't that much. They didn't really give us too much flexibility on the availability because they wanted to maintain their current program. And then about a year later, got a call from the GM at the time. And they asked, it was like, hey, the owner wants to have a conversation about potential opportunity.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then I was like, yeah, I'm down.
Wow. Well, you already owned 45 East is a club in Portland, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so you already owned a club, so you potentially knew what you were getting into.
Yes. It's like, I'm a businessman, and I've always wanted to expand and kind of like challenge my ability on what I can do and how much more I can accomplish. Right. So it's like, when Foundation got shut down a few years ago, a lot of my friends in Seattle and even Portland were like, here's your opportunity, go in there.
Gap.
Yeah, there's your go in there. But like, I wanted to wait for an opportunity that was created by me instead of like, hey, jump on it, close the gap. It just never didn't felt right. So, and also at the same time, like, I had a pretty good working relationship with Chad Anderson from USC. And,
okay.
And that just didn't feel right at the time. So
got it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing that became very obvious to me when we were talking off camera is just, yes, you're a businessman. Obviously, that came across very quickly, even when I was communicating with you on the phone. But you also have really, really deep roots in the dance music community. Like I don't know if people know that, or I didn't really know that until I started talking to you. You've been involved for a while as a DJ and going to parties, and I mean since the 90s, 2000s, right?
Yeah, I mean I started going to underground warehouse parties late 90s, and I did my fair share of partying, and and then my motivation in that community was, hey, maybe I want to become a DJ, like,
Yep.
Like that's like the coolest thing when you go to a party, like that's the coolest person in the whole party because, and then I really liked the music aspect of it because it was different, and then the culture was very accepting, it was very, open arm and didn't really judge like who you are and how you look and all of that. So, I immediately fell in love with it, and then I bought my first turntables early 2000.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that story. You go to a party or you go to a few parties and you're like, man, the DJ, they're just so cool.
Right. Like, they just like,
how do I get in on that?
Like, oh my God, like, there's that DJ, so
they're just controlling the room if they're good at what they're doing. And there's a lot of good DJs back then too, and good sound systems.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So when the Q ownership reached out to you, was it, why you? Why did they reach out to you? Because of your past experience with like 45 East and just you booking shows with the Q, or was there a bunch of people kind of lined up for them to talk to?
I don't know too much of details of it, but from what I heard from talking to the owner at the time, he didn't really want to make it public.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't really want to sell it to, corporates or, industry giants. And he wanted to, pass it over to independent business owner like himself and, myself. Yeah.
Did he have in fairness to you, I spent some time at Q kind of come and go and burst, but did he have a reason for leaving? Like, was he just tired of the business, or was there moving, or what made him want to sell in the first place?
I think,
I
think the majority part of it was the financial challenge. I think once the business started declining and it became less interested and it became more exhausting, mentally and all of that. So I think he just wanted to find somebody who can continue the legacy of Q Nightclub, because it's been around for 14 or 16 years. Yeah, it's been around for a while. Yeah,
I remember when it first opened up.
Yeah. So I mean, like, also at the same time, like, he's not really a nightclub owner character. Yeah, I mean, you'll be surprised. Yeah.
Really?
So his name is Andy. He started this business because he thought it was going to be fun and cool, but I think once he got into it, once he realized how challenging it is, he relied on a lot of his staff, and then he just kind of, I think after COVID, he just kind of was more of hands off.
Yeah, that I can imagine. I mean, yeah, in theory, again, going back to, I think about like the old rave days, and it looks so cool to be a DJ. But then also when you start clubbing, you're like, oh man, it'd be so cool to own a club. But when that would stress me out. Like, from what I know, like the club owners that I met and even the promoters that I've met, like planning and putting a party together and making sure you get everything right and making sure it's successful is like I don't know how you guys do it.
Well, yeah, I definitely could tell you being a club owner is not as glamour as people think it is. Right. When I was just a promoter and just going into clubs and venues, like, I can just go in there, do my show, and get out. Yeah. And there was nothing else to worry about. But when you're actually, operating your own business at a club and doing shows, there are a lot more aftermath you have to deal with, customer complaints, customer service, like stuff that goes wrong with the staff, and it's just nonstop, and it literally absorbs like 16, 18 hours of my day, and like I learned this, first year or two, operating the 45 East, like you would have a sold out show. If the show was great, the headline had a great time, it was amazing, right? And then you get this one email the next morning, customer had this incident, and that just takes away everything. You know what I mean? And so, back in the day, like I would be a lot more reactive, and trying to figure out, like, I wanted to fix the issue immediately, but now it's like, I can tolerate that a lot more. You know what I mean? And I know how to address it. I know how to not to be so reactive, because at the end of the day, like, it really messes with your mental capacity.
Yeah, there's got to be a level. I think maybe that's why. Maybe it just freaks me out. But there's got to be a level of resilience that you have to have. Because, yeah, to your point, and I don't think people think about that just going even to clubs, like how much goes on.
Right.
You know, you hear things through people and rumors and stuff, but you don't know how much goes on. And then it comes down to you being the owner, right? Like you got to manage it. You have to deal with that security person, or you have to deal with that bartender, or Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine just opened up his own venue. You know, he's been in the Portland, dance music community scene for over 30 years. I used to go to his party, and he was dealing with a lot of the things that I was dealing with, and I would talk to him about it.
Sure.
I was like, hey, like, I went through all the stuff that you went through when I first opened my own club, right? It's gonna get better. Just try to guide him and give him the assurance, like, it's not as that bad as you think it's going to be. You're gonna build a tolerance on this. Like what you see on social media, what all these 1-star reviews. Like at the end of the day, like, it's very important how you receive it and how you react to it.
Right.
Because if you react to it and then if it fucks with your head, like, then you're not gonna last. Because like you probably have multiple years of lease that you agreed to, and you got to figure out how you're gonna last and maintain the your mental capacity, because it's not gonna go away. It's gonna happen over and over and over. So,
and you got, I mean, not only do you have a family that depends on you, but you have, like, that's the thing. It's a very people heavy business too. So you have staff and security and all these people who are depending on you, and things can't go sideways, and you can't lose your shit, I imagine, or like it's a sign of weakness potentially if you start getting reactive and acting emotional in front of everybody. Yeah. See, that's stressing me out. I'd probably cry.
Nah, dude, like the best thing about this business is learning from your mistakes. That's the one thing that I, preach to a lot of my staff. It's like, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. As long as you learn from it. And then as long as we try not to make that same mistake. I mean, that's part of the growth. So like, I'm very thankful because the team that I have down in down in 45 and Red Cube, most of those guys been working for me for many years. One of them is, approaching 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like we all share the same goal, and we all have the same mentality of how we're going to address and go through all this stuff, And I tell him, I was like, hey, I started doing this because it was fun for me, and you came to me and wanted to be part of what we got going on because it looked fun. It looked fun to you, right?
Yeah.
Don't ever lose that, because I want you guys to have fun, But at the same time, you got to understand we're running a business. Yeah. So
it's a fun business, but it's still a business.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Yep. That's wild. I was going to ask you about your team actually, because you're running essentially 2 clubs right now, plus your promotion company, right?
Yes.
And then there's a lot of sort of interplay between all 3, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
How does that look? Because I didn't understand that, and I would love for people who, from Seattle, since you're not new to Seattle, but you're relatively new in the limelight, owning Q, right? So how does it work with Red Cube and with 45 East and with Q and your team?
So it all starts with Red Cube, and then the Red Cube is the one who's buying and booking and promoting the shows, right?
Got it.
And then Red Cube place the shows at 45 East and Q Nightclub, right? So it starts with Red Cube, and then it delegates to 45 East staff and Q Nightclub staff. So like I have team of 5 in the office, Ian, Hannah, Eli, Brian, myself, we're the one who was driving the main car. Yeah. So, and then, besides our own venues, our clubs, we do shows at other venues in Pacific Northwest, Roseland, Crystal Ballroom, venues in Eugene. We've done some shows at Showbox. We're making, developing new relationship with, other Seattle promoters. So, I mean, like I've always had a relationship with people in Seattle,
right?
With DJs and, like people in the industry, the vendors. So like, I've been maintaining that relationship, but also what I'm excited about is, developing new relationship, with these new promoters and stuff like that. So yeah. So like pretty excited about, what the future is going to look like in Seattle, because, I've told everybody that, like Q Nightclub is my stepping stone. Yeah. And with the Q Nightclub, we want to create more opportunities based on calculated, a risk decision and all that stuff. So like, yeah, we want to do more, but at the same time, like we want to do more that we can handle.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we don't want to overcommit and underdeliver.
Well, what struck me is like, again, like I want to wrap my head around this, but like you did more than 200 shows, or you guys are trying to target between like 200 and 300 shows in a year. Is that?
Yeah. So we were doing about just under 200 shows.
And that's across Portland, Seattle?
No, that was more of a Portland.
Okay.
Yeah. And then now, we're booking, Fridays and Saturdays, every show, every week in Seattle with Q Nightclub. So I think one of my staff was like, do you know that we're going to be doing about 300 shows? That is like pretty much how many days are in a year.
Right.
Yeah. I never looked at it that way. When I heard that, I'm like, holy fuck.
It's a lot of shows.
Yeah. So, but I'm thankful about, my team, shout out to, my guys at Q, 45 East and Red Q, they're all great team players.
Yeah, you got to have a solid team to pull off those kind of numbers and successfully, right? Like, yeah. And I know every show's not maybe a banger, right? But the goal is to have as many bangers as you can.
Right. We not every show is W's, and a lot of them are L's. But it's like when you're committed and trying to maintain the consistency of like the volume of business, like we know that, And I tell everybody that it's like, hey, as long as we know that we gave more than 100%, we're totally okay with that. Yeah.
So in that scenario, like tactically, do you guys, because you have a team, do they proactively go out and kind of set up shows and build lineups and do all that, or is most of it coming your way and then you guys are kind of working in the background trying to make it work, or is it both?
So I mean, we always have main person who's like actually producing the show at the club,
right?
So like obviously there's a team in 45 East, so like I don't go to shows. Like I go to bed at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday, and then like on the weekends, like I usually like end up passing out on the couch watching SportsCenter.
Okay.
Yeah, but but it took me a while to develop a team that I can trust, that I know that things will be handled, that I can go to bed and have a good sleep, So it's like, it's so we do have our staff members like overseeing everything, but we decide, we usually work with the venues that has a good team to actually help out.
Got it.
So like, it's not just all us, what I mean? So yeah.
And there's other teams working with your team, like other promoters who have their own crews.
Right. And then that's, we're pretty selective on which venues we want to go into, because we want to make sure that they have a solid crew and they know what they're doing, because we don't want to hold hands from the beginning to the end.
Right, because then what are they useful for, right?
Yeah, plus if they're going to charge us thousands of dollars for rental fees, and like, but then, I want to make sure that, that you guys know what you're doing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So you're and from a business standpoint for you, would you say like the majority of your business still happening in Portland and then some in Seattle with this new acquisition, or is it kind of split? Like how does the percentage look? Because It's a big ground to cover.
I mean, our main focus is Portland,
Okay.
because that's, where we started,
Yep.
But Seattle is, we definitely want to expand as much as we can, but at the same time, like, we want to do as much as we can handle.
You don't want to spread yourself too thin.
No, yeah. Like, I already have too many gray hairs, so. Yeah.
How do the scenes compare between kind of Portland and Seattle, in your eyes?
Well, like we talked about before we started this, like, I used to come up to a lot of Seattle parties back in the day. There were times I would drive up to NAF. I'm so stoked that place is coming back.
Same,
because I've had so many good memories, and because of that place, I was able to develop friendship with all these DJs and promoters. So yeah, it's similar, but it's definitely there are things different about it. You know what I mean? So for example, right, like, even though the programming is Q Nightclub is similar to what we're doing at 45 East, right? But I think because of the city is much larger, there's more population, and there are more competitions. I don't want to call it competition. There are more choices
in Seattle.
Right? I mean, Portland is pretty competitive as well. There are a lot of good promoters, doing great shows down in Portland. So, but then, like, it's like, as far as like the club scene goes, like, it's like people's spending behavior and drinking behavior is definitely different than between the two cities.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Like, we consider it as like, oh, we're the Pacific Northwest,
right?
But like, I've been seeing a huge deficit and differences between the Portland crowd and Seattle crowd.
And the Portland drink more alcohol? Or
I think so.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah. I think Portland people.
I mean, I don't think it's like a diss on anybody who drinks more, who drinks less, but it is interesting, like, who does drink more.
Right. I mean, the way I look at it is like, I think Seattle people are trying to be more healthy.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a good way to put it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I was actually going to ask you that, when we had Sangdo in here, but it does seem just generally there's a trend for people sort of steering away from alcohol, or at least certain age groups steering away from alcohol, or maybe not really having alcohol be a central focus in their social or their nightlife, right? And you're probably seeing that too.
Yeah. A lot of people do come in. I mean, not a lot of them, but we see increased number of people come in for the headliners, and really don't drink, don't spend money at the bar, which is fine, and they leave when the headliner set is almost done, and that's great, because less people leaving the club less intoxicated, it kind of reduces the liability of the business.
Reduces the risk and some of the drama, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. So
interesting. And so if just for the local heads, because I know, man, I've read things, right? I track social media and stuff like that. But if somebody wants to throw an event at Q, or somebody wants to partner up with Q, I totally understand the thought about being selective. Your brand's on the line, your business is on the line. There's a lot less liability for somebody just coming in and saying, hey, I want to do a party. But like, how does it work normally for somebody to do that? And how do you vet and things like that?
I mean, just to make it very clear, the door's wide open.
Okay.
So, we've done shows with Vivid Presents in January. Yep. We've done shows with Sid, the whole, I forgot his name. He's huge in Burning Man community.
Okay.
And then Romero from Uniting Souls, he's reached out, so like, I never say no. I just tell them, as like, hey, we'd love to do shows with you, but these are the terms, and I want to make sure that what we are asking makes sense for you. Because I know as a promoter, it's a shitty feeling. You put in all this work in, you put your money into it, and then if the show doesn't do well, and then you walk away with this the sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
You know, like anybody that we want to work with, I want everyone to succeed.
Right.
You know, so that way we can feel good about it, you know, have the smiles and just, you know, because you know when you've been to a shitty show and a good show,
right.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's a huge deficit, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, same thing in Portland, you know, like we've never said no, you know?
Right.
And I just, I'm a black and white guy dude. Like, hey, these are the terms of, because it costs money to open doors,
yep.
and these are the expenses that we ask you to pay.
Yep.
And if it works out for you, let's do it. If it doesn't, you know, that's fine. Yeah. So
got it.
Yeah, doors wide open.
Yeah. No, I like that. And you said something earlier, which I just your energy around like being stoked that NAFA's back. Right. I think the fact that, you know, and we didn't really talk about this, but it sounds like there's directionally maybe some differences with Q that you're going to be focusing on you know, a little bit from when it was before, right?
Yeah.
Because I was looking at the lineup, we were talking about this, that, you know, there's definitely I recognize big names from festivals. I definitely don't recognize some names. And then I recognize some old school badass like DJs that I will go see anytime I see them on the bill here, you know.
Right.
Felix the House Cat, Mark Farina, Todd Terry, like, you know, that's my shit right there.
Right. So, you know, like that comes from my root, right? Because those are the DJs I grew up going to see, watch them DJ, you know, like inspire me, you know, and these artists that like you don't know, you know, they're the new generation of the artists, you know, and they sell tickets.
They're important, man.
You know?
They're probably more important in a way, right? Like it's.
I mean, I started becoming a promoter because the main reason was when I started DJing, I couldn't get a booking. You know, because back in the day, you know,
I never felt that feeling before.
Back in the day, and still this time, you know, there's a lot of local politics involved, right? Yeah, right. So like, I've made demo CDs and gave it to all the promoters, and they didn't know me. So my friend told me, it's like, you want to DJ? You want to DJ in front of a big crowd? You need to throw your own show.
Yep.
And that's how it all started.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, my very first show, you know, was I decided to book my idol, you know, DJ Icy, because you know, I started playing, you know, breaks. Yeah, I was heavily influenced by Dig Dug. Yep. You know, James Steele. You know, Bad Boy Bill. You know, all that. You know, like first time, like when I heard breakbeat I was at this rave called Surprise. I think it was like 2001. It was a warehouse party. It was Bad Boy Bill, Nigel Richards, Mars and Mystery. It was an amazing party. Yeah. And like I was like being a fanboy of Bad Boy Bill because you know the CD called Banging in London? Yeah. Yeah. So like and then he was playing at this banging Chicago house, and then he dropped this breakbeat, and like I heard that thing, and I asked my friend, I was like, what the fuck is that? It's like, oh, it's called a breakbeat. I'm like, that's what I want to play. Right. That's what I want to play. Yeah.
Breaks hit me the same way early on. Same thing.
Just the 4-4, and then it drops. Yeah. Dude, like just what? Blew my mind.
Same thing happened to me. Yeah. Same thing happened to me.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah. So yeah. And then, you know, I started throwing my own parties to become a DJ. I mean, to play my own show. And it was fun for me, right? So I started booking like Simply Jeff, John Kelly, you know, Shiraz, just all breakbeat.
Funky
and then,
Desert Breaks. Yeah, those were such inspiring. And Simply Jeff too, man.
And then I got really into drum and bass and booked Diesel Boy, Planet the Drums, you know. Yeah. So I started booking DJs that I was inspired by and I wanted to see, right? But never made any money.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And then like, you know, I think around like 2007, 2008, like this whole dubstep movement came. Yep. That's when like Screaming Banga, like Rusko, Caspa, like the original dubstep sound. And, you know, like agents are hitting me up as, hey, you got to try it. Like, I was like, dude, I don't even like this music. It's like, hey, dude, like you got to book it. Like Dasik, Excision. And then like, dude, like, all these people that I've never seen came to the show and then like, you know, sold out. And I'm like, okay, maybe I need to start booking DJs that I don't really know about.
Yeah.
And then like start adapting to the whole new generation, the new interest of the sound. And then I think around 2009 that the underground music scene just became mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and when I ask about, like, when I say I don't recognize the names, if you talked to me 20 years ago, or well, more like 25 years ago, and I said that, it was because I was being arrogant. Mm-hmm. Now it's because I'm like fascinated and I want to know who these people are and what is the sound they're representing and how many kids are coming in because of them, you know, because that's what's important. That's where the grass grows, right?
100%.
You start bringing in the new crowds with the different music. I think dubstep was a huge gateway for a different audience to start coming to clubs. And yeah, it's smart, man. And it's just cool to see a varied lineup like that, and you know what you guys are doing already.
Yeah, I mean, like, I still don't like dubstep. You know, I mean, some of the old school stuff I still do. I can tolerate, but like, you know, a lot of the tear out stuff, I like, you know, in our office, like, you know, like our marketing manager is like making a video and he's putting dubstep and it's loud. I'm like, hey, dude, turn that off. Like I just can't even, like, you know, deal with that, you know? So put your headphone on and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I think you're probably, or maybe I'm more like, I'm a little bit like you, where, you know, I don't like fly fishing, but if somebody's really into fly fishing, I love to see the passion and I love to talk to them about it, and I like to learn about it, and I still maybe won't be a fly fisherman, but fuck it, I'm glad you're into it, right? Because it makes people interesting when they're really into something, even if it's not your cup, you know. Right.
I don't hate it. Just, you know, like, I'm not gonna hate something because I don't like it. It's not my cup of tea.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. That's like the 20-something arrogant. I know the shit. And I play this, and you don't want to listen to that. That's a sellout sound, whatever. Like, that's cool. No, okay, I gotcha. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I mean, I feel like I've kind of. Is there anything else you want to say about Q or about what you're trying to do here in Seattle before we jump off the topic? And if we've covered it, that's cool too.
Well, I mean, like I said, you know, when we were doing shows at the Q a couple of years ago, you know, they were more focused on. They were considered as like a hip hop club, right? So we're just trying to re-identify of the business and rebrand and change the culture back to what it was, you know? So, like, I'll admit it, right? Like, you know, like, the Q Nightclub is not that relevant, you know, because it's been the same club since it opened, you know? So, you know, the first thing that I did was, you know, we installed some LED videos. Shout out to Anthony Recker, aka Hyperfunk, for helping us out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love that he's still got his foot in it.
Yeah. We still do business together.
That's killer.
Yeah. So, like, you know, the first thing I did was I called him up. He was like, "Yo, we need to change things up." And he's like, "Bro, I got you." You know.
I love it.
So, you know, just trying to make ourselves relevant again, you know? And trying to re-identify as like, hey, we are the club that we're bringing, you know, respectable, popular dance music artists, not just like the legends, but, you know, up and coming, even TikTok video artists, you know, so like, we're gonna try to, you know, cater to like variety of demographics, you know, like college kids, you know, such, you know, older generations, demographic like yourself, you know, to watch John Digweed, you know, or the Crystal Method, you know. So
no, that's great, man.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool. And I think, I don't know if I even finished my thought, but I just think for a while Seattle was musically, I think Seattle was evolving and it was kind of pushing forward musically, and now I think with the new venues or sort of reimagining of venues like you guys are doing, I just think it's such a good time to be here, man. And I feel like we're on the cusp of it right now. Like we're working our way up. It's pretty cool.
Right. And I think, you know, not just as myself, I think there are other people see Seattle market as an opportunity. Yeah. You know, we all know how dominant, how consistent USC was, you know, but once that kind of like left the picture, and you know, Insomniac and I think Showbox, you know, AG, like they're all really trying to, you know, find their place to close that gap. Yeah. You know, so like I said, like Seattle has a lot more choices.
Yeah.
And I think it's healthy for the business.
Well, and I think there's also some relearning that Seattle needs to do. I think, first of all, there's some new audiences that you guys can tap into, but I also think Seattle has been, yes, there's choices, but it was a little monotonous. Post-COVID, things were a lot shut down, and then it was there was only a few offerings, and slowly started to build. But I feel like it's accelerating now, which is really cool.
Yeah. It's great. There's just a lot of aggressive, bookings are happening, and it's like this, right? Like, I kind of use the grocery store analogy, right? When you're at the grocery store and you're looking for a bag of chip, right?
Yeah.
And you're at the chip aisle, right? And like, you're like, hey, I'm gonna go get a bag of Doritos, right? But then all the Doritos are gone. But do you just leave, or do you pick up Pringles or Sun Chips, right? It's like there's a lot of things happening. At the same time, like, don't just be stuck with one thing. There are other choices, and give other places a chance, and give other bag of chips a chance. Because at the end of the day, like, you're still gonna eat a bag of chips.
Yeah. And different venues have different vibes, and they're offering different things. No, I think it's cool. Yeah. And in your eyes, because a few years ago, I used to say, God, is there just enough critical mass to support like a renaissance of nightclubs in Seattle? And it sounds like you're pretty optimistic that there is. Like, it's just getting them out. And
well, yeah, I mean, it's like, I was amazed. I think few weeks ago there was a night, there was a big dubstep concert at WAMU. I think it was like 9,000 tickets or 8,000 tickets, right? And then across the street there was a house artist played, and then he ended up doing 1,300 tickets or 1,500 tickets.
Was that at like the brewery?
Yeah, I think it's called, it's called the Victory Hall. It's like literally across the street from the mayor's.
It was the old like Pyramid Brewery.
Yeah. And then cool. We had a show that was also sold out. So just knowing, just based on that data, like, it's like, the competition is there, but like, you could actually like support all that.
That's so cool to hear. Yeah. And I think maybe people are catching on. Like,
right.
Yeah. Go here and then maybe even go to a second venue in the same night. Right. It doesn't have to be one and done.
Right. Right.
That's really cool.
I mean, I don't think that would happen in Portland.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can do a big EDM concert that's going to sell thousands of tickets, and then another venue sells, over 1,000 tickets, and the club does what, because Seattle is such a bigger city. Okay. Yeah. So I think it can support all that. Yeah.
I think I just had a slanted view because I've been here so long, and but it's really like refreshing to hear that optimism around that. That's really cool.
Right.
Man, well, so moving off the club thing, let's talk about you for a second. Like, you're not from Seattle. You ended up in Portland in the 90s, but like, where did it all start for you?
Well, I mean, I moved to Portland in 94. I went to school, went to college. I went to high school, went to college for maybe about a year, and then I was like, you know what, this is not really my thing, And and I was heavily involved helping out with family business, just like my family immigrated to the United States in 92. We started from Seoul, Korea.
Okay, got it.
It's my mom, my dad, my older sister, and then we have a bunch of relatives in the Bay Area, so we aunts and cousins. So we started there for 2 years, and my father found a business up in Portland, so we moved up here, and I was just like going to school, working at my parents' business on the weekends, and and just doing all that stuff. And then like I went to a prom, and then my date asked me, "Is like, hey, do you want to get out of here?" I was like, "Okay, where do you want to go?" It was like, "There's a rave that all my friends are wanting to go." I'm like, okay, I didn't even know what rave was.
Yeah, that's how it all starts.
Yeah.
Right?
So like, we went there, and I'm just like, whoa, this is crazy, right? Yeah. And like, she was like, she had friends over there, so she was like doing her thing, and I'm just kind of checking things out. I was that odd guy standing, like kind of like not knowing what I'm supposed to be doing. And
overwhelmed a little bit.
Yeah, and then this dude came up to me. He was like, "Hey, you smoke weed?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "You want to smoke a joint?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Like, and he, we puff, a couple times, and it's like, "Hey, you want something sweet?" I'm like, yeah, what you got? He's like, and then he's like, "I got some of these sugar cubes."
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, okay, maybe that's maybe that's the thing, right?
You didn't know it was like code, right?
Yeah. And it's like, just you want one? I was like, yeah, I'll take 2. So I ate that, right? And then like I was just trying to like figure out how to dance to this music, and then 15 minutes later, like this guy, Jason, he's Asian Jason, he was my old partner. He's passed away. Rest in peace, AJ. He's like, "Hey, did this guy give you sugar cubes?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "Bro, are you okay?" I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Dude, let's go home." It's like, before it's too late, let's go home.
And like, you didn't know this Jason guy at the time?
No, I didn't. Yeah. It's like, he was like, I'm gonna take you home. I'm like, okay. And then so I went home, and then I went home, and like, thankfully, nothing happened to me while I was awake, but I woke up and I had the craziest dream ever. So I think I fried
when you were sleeping.
Yeah. So, and then, a couple years later, my friends were like, "Hey, we're going to go to this rave." I was like, "Oh, I know that place." So, like we went there, and then, it was all over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, man, so many people have a similar story, but I think what's really cool about that is first of all, dude offers to smoke a joint and give you drugs, and you didn't know that you didn't know, but then the other dude like took care of you and became your homie, right?
Yeah, he was upset that his buddy suckered those some newbie.
He grabbed some normie and dosed him.
Yeah. And then like 2 years later, when I went to a rave again with different friends, I saw him. And I went up to him. I was like, "Yo, like, do you remember me?" I was like, "Yeah, dude." And then like, and then we became friends. And then like, he's the one who actually told me, is like, "If you want to play at a show, you got to throw your own party." Wow. So him and I started.
The sugar cube dude.
Jason. Yeah.
Okay.
So him and I started Red Cube. So
that is so cool.
So he was wearing red at every party. So like, everybody called him Asian Jason, right? Mm-hmm. And then, when I really got into the rave scene, like I really got into the pop and locking, and I did a lot of like, the geometric stuff, and like I was that guy doing with the cool box moves, right?
Gotcha.
So like, when we were like talking about, hey, what are we gonna call our company? It's like, well, I'm the guy with, always wearing red. You're the guy with the, cool box moves. Like, let's call it Red Box Production. And I'm like, man, that sounds kind of corny. You know what I mean? Like, cube sounds more intelligent than a box, right? He's like, right. Yeah, I agree. And that's how the Red Cube thing started.
Wow.
Yeah.
No idea. I bet. How many people know that story, though?
Not that many people. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of our close friends will know about it, but like, that's how the whole Red Cube thing started. Yeah.
And it's always a pretty girl taking you to some place that you're uncomfortable.
Right.
And then it all started from there, from your first rave, right?
Right. I mean, the fact that like he was worried about some random guy who got sucker dosed, like
that's pretty cool.
That tells a lot about this guy's character.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and I do think, especially early on, I think that rave culture was a little bit hippie, take care of your brothers, sisters, like that, you know? I mean, there was some shade in there too, obviously. Like I spent a lot of time at parties, but really for the most part, I met really good people.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I still know a ton of them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, like I still keep, close contact with a lot of the fellow DJs and, a lot of the, the ravers that, that we met and sometimes I don't see them for a long time and then I'll see them at a club and I'm like, bro, how you been? You know what I mean? Like it's always great to reconnect with those, the people from our generation.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure.
Yeah.
And so tell me, it sounds like you You don't stay up super late. You're a businessman. You take your business serious. You got a family.
Yeah. So I've been married for 10 years.
Cool.
I've been with my lady for 20 years.
Wow.
I actually met her.
Don't say a rave.
Yeah, it was at a rave. I was DJing.
So perfect.
Love you, Bree.
So perfect.
I was DJing, and then like I got done DJing, and then my friend brought this girl to the backstage, and it's like, hey, this girl wants to meet the DJ, and I was like,
Of course.
okay. Maybe you're trying to be cool in front of this girl, trying to impress, you know.
Sure.
I was like, okay, hey, how's it going? Blah blah blah, and then he left. And she was just sitting next to me, and then I was like, kind of awkward, right? So I was drinking a beer, and it's like, do you want a drink? She's like, no, I don't want to drink a beer that you've been drinking. Do you have a new beer? Like, you know, I was like, and then I went and looked for the promoter and got her a beer, and then she started talking to me, and then she's like, I really enjoyed your set. You know, when do you play next? So she came to like 2 more of my gigs, and then after third gig, I was like, hey, do you want to hang out? You know? Yeah. And then, been with her since 2005. I still remember the date, 2005, October 23.
Oh, man.
The name of the party was Halloween-funkarama. It was a Halloween party.
No shit.
Yeah.
Were you dressed up?
No, that was never a thing for me.
You were a cool DJ. That was cool.
I was
enough.
always the hoodie, baseball cap.
Yep.
So yeah, now we are raising a family. I have 2 beautiful children. My daughter is gonna be 12 in June. My son's gonna be 9. So family is my number 1 priority.
Yeah.
I get up every morning between 4:30 and 5. So that way I can do my thing in the morning, drink coffee, put myself into the gym so I can, have my own time before I start my day. And then, we go on and I get home around like 5 or 6, 7, and then, spend time with my family and go to bed. I have 2 dogs too. Yeah. So,
Frenchies, right?
French bulldogs. Yes.
Yeah. That was when I mean, you were okay, but I knew I liked you when your number rang and 2 Frenchies popped up, and I'm like, all right, he's a dog guy. And so I have 2 pit bulls that
Yeah, I want to meet them.
Yeah, you get to meet them.
Yeah,
you get to meet them, man.
Yeah,
so that's
great.
cool. So, and I know you said, I'm seeing the motivation now. I've seen the sort of business acumen and the drive. You said Q's kind of a stepping stone. I mean, what is the future like if you have it your way, you and your team, or whatever that looks like, you for your family? Like, what does the future look like for you? Where are you going with this stuff?
Well, I told my wife, because when I told her about the opportunity in Seattle, she's like, "How are you gonna do all that?"
Right. That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah. And I said, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna have the drive for how many more years,
Yeah.
I want to set myself up and establish the business where like I can trust that it's going to be successful and run it, with trusted team, because at the end of the day, like I want to make sure that, my kids' futures are taken, taken care of, because college is expensive, and I don't know how many more years I can do this,
Yeah.
So like it's like, I mean, thankfully the 45 East is consistent, and I want to make sure that Q Nightclub gets to that point.
Yep.
And then I've met so many great other local promoters in Seattle, and there are a lot of opportunities for us to do things outside the Q Nightclub. So like I just want to set myself up where like like all my venues and all my shows are consistently doing well, so that way like all I have to do is just kind of like manage, after maybe 5 years, and when I turn 50, like I told my like I talk about this with my staff, is like, hey, if you're still around, maybe I make you a partner,
Yeah.
and you can run it for me, you know, because I would trust you to do it the way I want to do it, you know.
Yeah.
And all I want to do is just kind of sit back and kind of, you know, manage, you know, things, you know. But who knows, you know, like that's just my dream. But who knows how things are going to happen, you know.
It's good to have it, you know, to have like and I wouldn't even call it a finish line, but it's like it's good to be able to see that way. And I think you talk to. You talk to the smart small business owners, and they usually have some sort of vision on what it's going to look like, some sort of 5-year and out or 5-year not so hands-on. And so I figured it was there with you, just getting to know you, but that's pretty cool to, you know where you're going.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like it's like, I don't know if you heard of him, Disco Donnie presents Disco Donnie, like I think the era that Red Cube kind of took to a next level was when Donnie reached out to me and wanted to do shows in Portland. And like he was already doing, you know, multiple markets, you know, doing thousands of shows a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's like, you know, in 2006, you know, like the first show him and I produced together was Paul Oakenfold at the Crystal Ballroom.
Wow.
Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And by working with him and his team, like I actually like saw the whole business aspect of how this should be ran.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, like, you know, I consider myself lucky, you know. I just had a really good opportunity to work with really good people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, like if it wasn't for the people that I met along this journey, like I would never be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just the people you met, but it's how you engage with them and how, you know, you build trust with them and they build trust with you.
Yeah.
Because we meet a lot of people and it takes effort, it takes smarts, it takes emotional intelligence,
of course,
to be able to do that. So, man, I wasn't clear about this for the audience, but like we had never met before.
Right.
This is what I love about this, because I just like we never met, and you know I learned so much about somebody. And yeah.
No, dude, when Johnny Munson recommended this opportunity, you know, like I trusted him, you know, because I've known him for so long, and he gave me a reason why I should do this, you know, and you know, when we talk on the phone the first time, we just clicked.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
immediately.
Like, immediately.
Even though I was all out of breath because I was working out. So.
Yes. So, thanks for having me. It's always good to meet new people that understands, like, you know, where we come from and understand, like, you know, the business aspect of it and just have a common things to talk about.
Yeah, for
you know
sure.
what I mean? And that's just great because, you know, every day, like, I don't get to do this, you know? Like, I'm just, you know, just tunnel vision, staying in my own lane. And I got things to, you know, check off my list and just, like, you know, but, like, when I told my wife I was doing this, I was like, really? Like, you're going to do that? I was like, you hate talking, like, in public. You don't do interviews. I was like, yeah, but these guys are like me, you know, like, and you know, they're gonna, like, I think we're gonna have a great conversation,
For
you know,
sure.
and you know, like, of course, you know, like, and then they're gonna invite me to DJ after that. Like, when do I ever get to DJ?
Exactly.
You know? Yeah, I just don't have time to DJ. So, no, I told her like I was looking forward to it, and yeah, so.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, no, I appreciate you being here, and yeah, that's also one of my other favorite parts is like the fact that you know, are a club owner and a promoter, but you're also still a DJ, and like I'm excited to hear what you play, and so you play whatever the hell you want. I think I told you can play smooth jazz. I don't care. Like this is your time to enjoy yourself in my little studio.
Right. Yeah. I think the last gig I played was like 6 months ago. I just don't have the time to like, you know, like when you're DJing, you're like living the whole DJ culture, right?
For sure.
You're always like, you know, back in the day, you know, I would go to Platinum Records every Tuesday because that's when the new releases come out.
Oh,
you know? And then you see all these white labels, right? And then you like, okay, I'm gonna admit it. Like, I was that DJ, bought all the white labels, so that way nobody else would have it.
If it was a heater, man, I'd buy 3 copies.
Right. Yeah, you know, and then after I play, and then like my friend's like, hey, where did you get that from? It's like, here you go, bro. I have extra copies. You can play because I played it before you did.
Yeah, totally.
But now, you know, it's like, that's the whole fun of being a DJ. Just living the culture, but I just don't have the time, the capacity. I still love DJing. Even at a bedroom or office or at a club, like. I just like mixing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
same.
Yeah.
Well, let's get you on the decks, man.
All right, man. I'm gonna try this. Yeah, we'll see how it happens.
I'm sure it'll go great. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're a busy dude. I really want to get you in here, so I'm glad we made it work.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was great. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
Seattle House Mafia.